Hey everyone. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. It really helps YouTube recommend more stories like this one to you. Alright, let's jump right in. The second I saw the photograph, I felt something rip inside me. It was sitting there in the middle of my kitchen table, like someone had placed it there on purpose. A glossy print, not digital. The kind of photo that smells faintly like chemicals when you touch it. In it, I was wearing a white wedding dress. My face was turned slightly to the side, frozen mid-laugh. Next to me stood a man in a navy suit. My husband. The problem was, I'd never been married. And the man was my boyfriend, Luke. But we'd only been dating for 6 months. I stared at the photo for a long time, my throat dry. The kitchen felt too quiet. The clock ticked somewhere behind me, sharp and deliberate. I wanted to believe it was fake, some Photoshop prank or maybe a memory from a dream that got mixed up. But the lighting, the background, the tiny details, everything looked real. I could see the reflection of the venue lights in my eyes, the wrinkles in the dress fabric where it creased near my hands, the silver band on my ring finger. I don't wear rings. And then something even worse, the handwriting on the back. It said, "Our wedding day. 7/14/21, love you forever." I don't know why, but I smelled the paper. Perfume. My perfume. The one Luke bought me for my birthday last month. When he came home from work that night, I tried to act normal. I poured him a glass of wine, asked how his day was, listened to him complain about the traffic. But my heart wouldn't stop pounding. Finally, I slid the photo across the table. "Where did you get this?" I asked. He blinked. "What's that?" "Don't play dumb." My voice shook. "You and me, in a wedding photo. You wrote this." He picked it up, studying it for a long time. Then he smiled. "That's weird," he said softly. "You don't remember." The way he said it, calm, almost gentle, made me feel like the floor tilted under my feet. "Remember what, Luke?" "The wedding." He said it simply, like stating the weather. "You've been under a lot of stress." I thought the medication was helping. "What medication?" I whispered. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "Babe, it's okay. You've had these lapses before." My skin went cold. I pulled my hand away. "Stop it. This isn't funny. I'm not joking." He got up, walked to the cabinet, and came back with a small orange pill bottle. My name, Emily Carson, was printed neatly on the label, prescribed by Dr. A. Keller, a doctor I'd never heard of. For anxiety and short-term memory disturbance, it said. I dropped it. The pills rattled across the tile like little teeth. That night, I didn't sleep. I waited until Luke started snoring beside me, then slipped out of bed and went to the bathroom. The mirror above the sink was fogged from his shower earlier. I wiped it clear, staring at myself. I looked pale, drained, hollow-eyed, but I knew who I was. I wasn't crazy. I opened the medicine cabinet. The bottle was gone. I searched everywhere. Under the sink. In drawers. Even behind the towels, nothing. Then, just as I was about to give up, I noticed a thin line of light under the hall closet door. We never leave that light on. I opened it. Inside, hanging neatly on a plastic garment bag, was the wedding dress. My hand shook as I unzipped it. The smell hit me immediately. Perfume and something faintly metallic. I ran my fingers over the fabric. There were faint brown stains near the hem. Blood. I heard movement behind me. Couldn't sleep again. Luke's voice was soft, almost amused. I froze. Where did this come from? He looked at the dress. I told you. You don't remember. I never wore this. I never got married. He stepped closer, his expression unreadable. Emily, you're scaring me. No, you're scaring me. I backed away until my shoulder hit the doorframe. This isn't real. None of this is real, he sighed, rubbed his temples. You said that before, after the accident. What accident? He looked at me with pity. Maybe I should call Dr. Keller. The next morning, I drove to my mom's house. She lives an hour away, in a quiet cul-de-sac where every lawn looks the same. I didn't tell Luke where I was going. When she opened the door, her face lit up with relief. Oh, honey, thank God. She pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. What's going on? I asked. She held me at arm's length. Luke called. He said you had another episode. What episode? She frowned. Sweetheart, you were in the hospital for weeks. After the crash. You don't remember that? No, I whispered. Because it didn't happen. She looked confused, almost frightened. Emily, you were driving to your bachelorette party. You don't remember any of it? I just stared at her. Bachelorette party? She nodded slowly. You and Luke were supposed to get married that weekend. But you never made it to the venue. Her voice broke. You hit a tree. They said you were lucky to survive. My head spun. I gripped the doorframe for balance. That's not possible. Mom, that's not... She grabbed my face between her hands. Baby, I saw you in that hospital bed. I sat next to Luke every day. I stepped back, shaking my head. No. Her eyes filled with tears. Please, Emily, you need to talk to your doctor again. I drove away before she could stop me. The sky was overcast, the road a dull gray ribbon stretching through endless woods. I couldn't stop replaying her words. Bachelorette party. Crash. Hospital. But I remembered none of it. All I remembered was meeting Luke at a coffee shop 6 months ago. He smiled at me over a spilled latte and said he liked my laugh. We went on dates, fell asleep on his couch, talked about traveling someday. That was it. There was no wedding, no accident. Unless the 6 months had been longer. Unless something had been reset. I stopped at a gas station halfway home. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A teenage cashier looked up from his phone when I walked in. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual.
Do you have a payphone or something?
My phone died. He pointed to the back corner. The phone was old, scratched, and smelled faintly of cigarettes. I dialed information and asked for Dr. A. Keller. After a moment, the operator said, I'm sorry. There's no listing under that name in the state. My stomach dropped. When I got back to my car, there was a note tucked under my windshield wiper. Stop digging. My hands shook so hard I dropped my keys. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a motel near the interstate. Cheap, with flickering lights and a buzzing vending machine outside the door. The room smelled faintly like mildew and old cigarettes. I double-locked the door, pushed the dresser in front of it, and sat on the bed with my phone. I opened my Photos app, scroll, and nothing strange. Just normal pictures of me and Luke, at restaurants, at home, smiling. But when I zoomed in on one, the one from our anniversary dinner, I saw something behind us. In the window reflection, a white dress, hanging in the background. I hadn't noticed it before. My thumb hovered over the screen. My heart beat so hard it hurt. Then my phone rang, unknown number. I answered without thinking. Hello? Silence, then a man's voice. Emily, it's me. Why'd you leave? Luke? You're not well, he said. His tone was calm, almost soothing. Come home. I'll take care of you. Stay away from me, I whispered. He sighed softly. You can't keep running from the truth. Click. I dropped the phone like it burned me. I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. The hum of the fridge, footsteps outside, the TV next door. Around 3 a.m., I thought I heard someone jiggling the doorknob. When I looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty. I called my mom, but she didn't answer. I checked my messages. One unread text from Luke. Found you. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I packed my bag and ran. I drove until sunrise. The highway was empty, endless. I didn't even know where I was going, just away. My thoughts kept looping back, circling the same impossible questions. If I'd really been in a crash, why didn't I remember? Why didn't I have scars? Why did no one mention it until now? And if we'd really been married, where were the witnesses? The photos? The papers? The only proof was that one photo, and the dress. By the time I reached the edge of town, my gas light was flashing. I pulled into a diner, the kind that still had sticky menus and pink booths from the 80s. The waitress poured me coffee and gave me a tired smile. Rough night? You could say that, I said. I was shaking so bad I almost spilled the cup. She hesitated, then said, You okay, sweetheart? You look like you've seen a ghost. I think someone's lying to me, I whispered. She nodded slowly. Boyfriend trouble? Something like that. She poured more coffee. They always start with lies, don't they? Little ones. Then before you know it, you don't even recognize your own life. Her words hit harder than she could have known. I left cash on the table and stepped outside, and froze. Across the street, parked at an angle, was Luke's car. My breath caught. He was standing beside it, looking right at me, smiling. I ran back inside. "Call the police," I gasped. "That man's following me." The waitress frowned, looking out the window. "What man?" I turned. The car was gone. He'd vanished. I stumbled into the restroom and splashed cold water on my face. The mirror showed a stranger. Pale skin, trembling lips, eyes rimmed red from no sleep. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was losing it. But when I lifted my hand to my neck, my fingers brushed against something rough. A faint scar. I leaned closer. A thin white line that ran just beneath my jaw, like from a seatbelt burn, or a surgical incision. That's when I noticed the small tattoo at the base of my wrist. A tiny, faint number, 71421, the date written on the back of the photo, the date of the wedding, the date of the accident. I don't have tattoos. I bolted out of the diner and jumped in my car, shaking. My thoughts spun out of... I don't remember driving back. One moment Luke was in the hospital parking lot. The next I was on the highway again, hands locked on the steering wheel, tears drying on my cheeks. The world outside blurred into gray streaks of rain. I just kept going, like some part of me already knew where I'd end up. Home. Our home. The house sat at the end of a narrow street lined with dying trees. Every porch light was off except ours. A dim orange glow seeping through the curtains like the house was breathing quietly to itself. My stomach twisted. I'd left that light off when I fled. I sat there for a long time, engine idling, watching the shadows move behind the curtains. Then I killed the lights and got out. The gravel crunched under my shoes. The night air was heavy and wet, smelling of dirt and rain. Every sound felt magnified. My breathing, the whisper of wind through leaves, a faint hum from inside the house. When I reached the door, I saw that it was slightly open. I should have left right then. But fear does weird things when it makes you curious, reckless. I pushed it open with the tip of my shoe and stepped inside. The living room was dark except for a small lamp glowing in the corner. On the table sat a single framed photo. I moved closer. It was another wedding picture. Same venue, same dress. But this time Luke's face was different, older. And my hair was shorter. It looked like years had passed. I picked it up and something behind me whispered, "Finally." I turned so fast I nearly fell. Luke stood in the hallway, half in shadow, barefoot, wearing the same clothes as that night in the kitchen. "Where have you been?" he asked softly. "Stay away from me." My voice cracked. He raised his hands like I was the dangerous one. I was worried. "You were getting confused again." "Stop saying that. You ran away after the treatment. Do you remember what happened last time you did that?" I shook my head. "There was no treatment. There was no doctor. There was no..." He interrupted, voice almost tender. "Emily, you begged me to help you forget. You didn't want to remember what you'd done. What are you talking about?" He took a step closer. "You killed me." I laughed, a dry, broken sound. "You're insane." He smiled sadly. "Maybe, but so are you." He moved into the light, and for a second I didn't recognize him. His eyes were duller, his skin too pale. His shirt was stained, dark, like something that had seeped through from underneath. Then the smell hit me. Iron and earth. "You're lying," I whispered. He tilted his head. "Then why do you still wear the ring?" I looked down. There it was. A thin silver band I hadn't noticed before, tight around my finger like it had always been there. I tried to pull it off. "It didn't move, I told you," he said softly. "You keep coming back. Every time you dig until it hurts. Then you forget again." He reached for me. I stepped back. "Don't touch me," he sighed. "I just wanted us to be happy. That's all you ever wanted too." Something in his voice cracked, a raw human sound, and for a split second I almost believed him. Then I saw movement behind him. Someone else was there. A woman stepped out from the shadows of the hall, pale, dressed in white. Her face was bruised, her lips gray, her eyes looked like mine. She smiled weakly. "You shouldn't have come back." The room tilted. I couldn't breathe.
Who are you?"
Luke looked between us, his expression unreadable. "You always ask that," he murmured. "And every time it breaks my heart." I ran. The front door slammed behind me. Rain soaked through my clothes instantly as I stumbled down the driveway into the street. The world felt warped, the air too thick, the sky too close. Headlights flashed. I turned just in time to see a car barreling toward me. My car. I froze. The tires screamed, and then everything went black. When I woke, I was lying in a hospital bed. The ceiling was white. The light hurt my eyes. My wrists had little tape marks from IVs. For a few blissful seconds, I thought it had all been a nightmare. Then I saw the flowers on the bedside table. Roses, red and white, tied with a silver ribbon. The tag read, "Get well soon, my love." I pressed the call button so hard my finger cramped. A nurse hurried in. She looked familiar, the one from the county hospital, the one who told me to leave. "Where am I?" I asked. She hesitated. "County General. You were in an accident. What day is it?" "July 14th. My mouth went dry. "What year?" She looked at the clipboard. 2021. For a long moment, I just stared at her. The world blurred at the edges. "That's not possible," she frowned. "You hit a tree. You've been unconscious for 3 days." "No," I whispered. "No, that already happened." Her expression softened. "Sometimes memory loss after trauma." I grabbed her wrist. "There was a man named Luke, my fiancé. Is he here?" She nodded slowly. "He hasn't left your side." Before I could respond, the door opened. Luke walked in, smiling, that same calm, practiced smile. "Hey, baby," I tried to sit up. "Don't you come near me!" The nurse gave me a nervous glance, then quietly slipped out, closing the door behind her. Luke sat in the chair beside the bed. "You scared me," he said. "Do you remember anything?" I shook my head. "None of this is real. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Shh, don't strain yourself. The doctor said your mind might create stories to cope." I slapped his hand away. I saw her. The woman. She looked like me. He didn't blink. "You mean your sister?" I froze. "I don't have a sister." His voice dropped. "You used to." He leaned closer, whispering like it was a secret between us. "But she didn't survive the crash." The world tilted again. "That's not true," he smiled faintly. "You asked me to help you forget her. The pain. Everything. You begged me to make it all go away." I covered my ears. "Stop." He sighed, stood up, and walked to the window. "It's okay. You'll remember soon. You always do." I don't know how long I stayed in that hospital. Days blurred together. Nurses came and went, but none would meet my eyes for long. Every time I asked for discharge papers, they said, "Soon." Luke was always there, smiling, reading to me, brushing my hair like everything was normal. One night, when he finally fell asleep in the chair, I unplugged the IV and slipped out. The hallways were empty. Lights flickered overhead. I followed the exit signs, bare feet slapping against cold tile. Halfway down the corridor, I saw a door marked "Records Authorized Personnel Only." I pushed it open. Rows of filing cabinets stretched into darkness. The smell of dust and paper filled my nose. My hands trembled as I searched through the drawers until I found it. Carson, Emily, deceased. The folder was thin, a single page and a photo. The photo showed a wrecked car wrapped around a tree, firefighters, a stretcher, 2 bodies covered in sheets. The report read, "Fatal accident. Bride and groom pronounced dead at scene. July 14th, 2021, my knees buckled." I turned the photo over. Someone had scrawled in black ink, "She never lets go." I heard footsteps behind me. Luke stood in the doorway, eyes shining. "You had to see, didn't you?" "What is this?" I whispered. "Am I dead?" He walked closer. "You were. For a while. I don't understand. You don't need to. You just need to stay." He reached for me and suddenly everything went white. A flash, a rush of cold air, then silence. When the world came back, I was standing in my kitchen. Sunlight through the window. Coffee brewing. The ordinary hum of morning. On the table sat a glossy photograph. I picked it up. It was a wedding picture. Me and Luke smiling. The handwriting on the back read, "Our wedding day. September 14, 21, love you forever." For a moment I just stared at it. Something about it felt wrong. A faint chill crawled up my spine. Then I heard the front door open. "Hey, babe," Luke called from the hallway. "Miss me?" I smiled automatically. "Hey." He kissed my forehead and set down his keys. "Everything okay?" "Yeah." I said slowly, placing the photo face down on the table. Just déjà vu, he laughed softly. You and your dreams. I forced a smile back. But my heart wouldn't stop pounding, because when I turned the photo over again, the handwriting was different this time. It said, "Try again." That night, after he fell asleep, I sat at the table staring at the photo until dawn. The sun rose warm and pink through the kitchen window. The clock ticked like it always had. Somewhere in the house, a floorboard creaked, soft, careful, like footsteps. And for the first time, I wasn't sure which version of me they were coming for. The first time I heard the crying, I thought it was the pipes. Our house was old, the kind with radiators that clanged at night and floorboards that sighed like someone was pacing just out of sight. Luke always said it had character. He liked to joke that the place was haunted, usually when I was half asleep, and he wanted to make me jump. But this sound, it wasn't the pipes, it was soft, rhythmic, and human, crying. From the basement, I sat up in bed, every nerve in my body buzzing. The clock on the nightstand glowed 2:47 a.m. Beside me, Luke was snoring quietly. I held my breath and listened. The sound came again, a stifled sob like someone trying not to be heard. I shook Luke's shoulder. "Hey, wake up," he groaned. "What's wrong?" "There's someone downstairs," I whispered. He blinked at me, half asleep. "You're imagining things again." "I'm serious, Luke." He sighed, sat up, and rubbed his eyes. "Fine, stay here." I listened as he got out of bed, his footsteps creaking down the hallway. A minute later, I heard the basement door open, then close again. Silence. My heart was racing so hard I felt sick. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then the basement door opened again, and Luke's voice drifted up. "Told you. Nothing down here." He came back into the bedroom, yawning. Probably just the pipes, like I said. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But when he turned to climb back into bed, I noticed something. A small smear of dirt on his bare foot. Like he'd been walking on the basement floor. The next morning, the air felt heavy, that weird pressure you get before a storm. I made coffee and tried not to think about the night before. Luke came into the kitchen, kissed the top of my head and smiled. "You okay, Em?" "Yeah," I lied. He poured himself a mug. "You've been tense lately," I shrugged. "Maybe I'm just tired." He gave me that look, half concern, half amusement. "You always overthink stuff."
This house creaks.
It's old. Nothing's wrong. But there was something in his tone I couldn't place, too smooth, too rehearsed. Like he'd practiced it. When he left for work, I stood at the top of the basement stairs for a long time. The door was old, painted over a dozen times. The brass knob was cold against my skin. I opened it just a crack. A wave of damp air rolled out, smelling faintly of earth and bleach. Something clanked softly below. Like a chain brushing concrete, I shut the door. Hard. That night I couldn't stop listening. Every little sound made me jump, the wind against the window, the fridge humming. But around 3 a.m., the crying started again. This time it was closer. I sat up slowly. The sound wasn't muffled like before. It was clear. A woman's voice, faint but desperate. I leaned over Luke. "Do you hear that?" He didn't move. The crying grew louder, trembling and raw. "Luke," I whispered again. Still nothing. I got out of bed and crept into the hallway. The sound was coming from the basement. My pulse hammered in my ears. I wrapped my fingers around the door handle. For a second, I thought I heard whispering, 2 voices now, low and frantic. Then silence. When I finally opened the door, the stairs stretched down into darkness. The air was freezing. I flicked the light switch. Nothing. "Hello?" I called softly. "Is someone down there?" No answer. Just that faint, lingering smell, bleach and something else. Something metallic. Blood, maybe. I slammed the door shut and locked it. The next morning, I told Luke. He listened quietly, stirring his coffee. Then he smiled, in that same calm, dismissive smile. "You had a nightmare, babe." It wasn't a nightmare. I was awake. He reached across the table, touching my hand. "You've been stressed since we moved in. You know how your mind plays tricks when you're anxious." I pulled away. "Don't do that." "Do what?" Talk to me like I'm crazy. He sighed, stood up, and grabbed his coat. If it makes you feel better, I'll check the basement again tonight, okay? Promise? Promise, but that night he never did. He went straight to bed, fell asleep instantly, and sometime after midnight I heard the basement door creak open. I froze. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Down the hallway I reached for Luke's arm, but his side of the bed was empty. The footsteps grew fainter, heading downstairs. I got up, heart pounding, and peeked out the bedroom door. The hallway was dark, the air still. Then I heard it, a whisper. Faint pleading, please. Please don't. A woman's voice followed by Luke's voice, low and firm. Stop crying. You're making it worse. My whole body went cold. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. I stood there frozen until the voices stopped. After what felt like forever, I heard the basement door close again. Then silence. When Luke came back to bed, he smelled like bleach. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened. Made breakfast. Kissed my cheek. Asked if I wanted to go for a walk. I stared at him across the table. Who were you talking to last night? He looked up, fork halfway to his mouth. What? Downstairs? I heard you. He smiled. That same maddeningly calm smile. You're scaring me, Em. Don't do that, I said quietly. Don't lie to me. He didn't respond. Just kept eating like I hadn't said a word. When he finally left for work, I went straight to the basement door. This time, I didn't hesitate. I turned the lock and went down. The air hit me like a wall, damp and cold, thick with that same smell. My flashlight beam shook as I aimed it down the steps. The basement was cluttered. Boxes, old furniture, tools, everything coated in dust. But in the far corner, something was different, a tarp. Large, dirty, and wet-looking. I walked closer, the floor cold under my bare feet. My heart felt like it was trying to claw out of my chest. I grabbed the edge of the tarp and pulled it back. Underneath was a mattress, stained, damp, and a metal chain bolted to the wall. I stumbled backward. Gagging, something caught the light near the mattress and on a photo. It was me, smiling. The picture looked old, like it had been printed years ago. My hair was shorter, my clothes different. On the back, in Luke's handwriting, my perfect wife. I don't remember getting back upstairs. I must have run, slammed the door, locked it again. I stood there shaking, clutching the photo. My mind was spinning. Why was there a photo of me down there? Why the chain, the mattress, and that smell? I grabbed my phone and called the police. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely type. The dispatcher's voice was calm. Ma'am, you said you found what exactly? A mattress, a chain, my photo, in my basement. Is anyone in the house with you? My husband, I whispered. He's at work. She told me to stay somewhere safe, that an officer would come by. I packed a bag, got in my car, and drove to the grocery store parking lot down the road to wait. But the police never showed. After an hour, I called again. The operator checked the records, said no call had been logged under my name or number. That's when I realized Luke worked in IT. He could have intercepted the call. I didn't go home that night. I checked into a motel under a fake name. I kept the lights on, the door locked, the TV playing static just for noise. Every shadow looked like him. Every sound made me jump. Sometime after midnight, someone knocked on my door. I froze. 3 slow knocks. Emily, his voice, opened the door. Let's talk. I backed into the bathroom and dialed 911 again, whispering into the phone. He's here. My husband's here. Please send someone. The operator said, Ma'am, what's your location? Before I could answer, the line went dead. The TV flickered and shut off. The lights followed. In the dark, I heard the lock click and a soft voice. You shouldn't have gone down there. When I woke, I was back in my own bed. The sunlight hurt my eyes. My head throbbed. My wrists ached. Luke was sitting beside me reading a book. Morning, he said softly. I tried to move, but my arms wouldn't budge. I looked down. My hands were tied, silk ribbon neat and tight. Why are you doing this? My voice cracked. He smiled. You always ask that. What's happening to me? You don't remember? He set the book down and leaned closer. His eyes looked tired, sad. You promised me you'd stop digging. You said you wanted to forget what happened down there. What happened down there? I whispered. He brushed his fingers against my cheek. You killed her. Who? The first one. I stared at him, not breathing. He smiled faintly. You never believed me at first. But you will. He stood up, walked toward the door, and glanced back over his shoulder. You always do. The door closed behind him, and somewhere below in the dark I heard the crying start again. The first night he didn't come home until after 3. I told myself not to panic. Luke worked in construction. Deadlines, weather delays, late nights happened. But when I asked him what he was working on, he said only, just a project out by the woods, and changed the subject. That became his answer for everything. At first it was once a week, then every night. Always the same. He'd kiss me goodnight, grab his thermos, and say, "Don't wait up." The front door would click shut, and the house would settle into a kind of unnatural quiet that didn't feel empty. It felt watched. Around the 5th night, I started keeping the curtains open just enough to see his taillights disappear down the street. Only that time they didn't turn toward the highway. They turned toward the back roads and the ones that led to nothing but forest. By midnight, the house was too silent. I could hear my own pulse. I made tea, scrolled my phone, told myself I was being dramatic, but every creak of the floorboards made me jump. Finally, I went to the window again. A faint light flickered in the trees miles away. It pulsed like a lantern swinging. I didn't sleep. The next morning, Luke came home smelling of smoke and metal. His hands were gray with dust. "You're filthy," I said. "Where were you?" He smiled like he always did, that small, practiced curve of his lips that never reached his eyes. "Told you. The project," I pressed. "What kind of project?" "Grading, repairs, nothing exciting." He rinsed his hands, humming softly to himself, and when he turned, there was a smear of red near his cuff. "Rust," I told myself. "Just rust," but it looked too fresh. 2 nights later, I couldn't stand it anymore. I waited until he left, until I heard his car roll down the driveway and the sound faded into the distance. Then I grabbed my keys and followed. No traffic, just darkness and rain. His taillights glowed ahead of me, dim and steady, winding through the back roads like he knew them by heart. After about 15 minutes, he turned onto an unmarked dirt path that disappeared into the trees. I parked far enough back that he wouldn't see me and got out, umbrella shaking in the wind. The woods were silent except for the rain. And then, faintly, the sound of shovels hitting earth. I followed it. There was a clearing ahead. A small pit lit by floodlights powered by a generator. Luke stood at the edge of it, shovel in hand. 2 other men were with him, their faces hidden by hoods. They weren't building anything. They were digging. I crouched behind a fallen log, my heart hammering. The smell hit me first, a sour metallic stench that clung to the rain. Then I saw the shape beside the pit, a tarp, long, heavy. Luke bent down, said something I couldn't hear, and the other 2 lifted the tarp into the hole. When they started covering it with dirt, I ran. By the time I got home, I was shaking so hard I dropped my keys twice. When Luke returned hours later, he looked calm, normal, like nothing had happened. "You're awake," he said, hanging up his coat. "Couldn't sleep?" I forced a smile. "No." He poured himself coffee, humming that same tune again, the one I'd never heard before he started this job. "What are you humming?" I asked. He paused. "Something I used to sing when I worked nights. Helps me focus." He didn't say where he used to work. He never did. The next morning, I tried to find that dirt road again. I drove for hours. Every turn looked the same. No sign of tire tracks, no lights, nothing. It was like the woods had swallowed it whole. When I came home, Luke was waiting in the driveway. "Looking for me?" he asked. My stomach dropped. "What?" He smiled, gentle, almost pitying. "You shouldn't drive out there alone. Bad things happen in those woods." I opened my mouth to ask how he knew, but he kissed my forehead, cutting me off. "Promise me you'll stop following me," he whispered. I didn't answer. He just smiled wider. "You always say that." That night, I dreamed of digging. The sound of metal against wet soil. I woke to find dirt under my fingernails. The smell of smoke lingered on my pillow. The week after that night in the woods, everything about Luke changed, subtly, like someone had replaced small pieces of him when I wasn't looking. He smiled too easily, spoke too softly. His hugs felt like rehearsed gestures, not real warmth. And every night, at exactly 11:47 p.m., he'd glance at the clock, stretch, and say the same words. Time for work. Then he'd disappear into the dark. I stopped following him. I told myself I was done being paranoid, but the truth was I was scared of what I might find. One morning I went out to his truck while he was in the shower. The back seat smelled faintly of earth and gasoline. Beneath an old jacket I found a clipboard, clean sheets of paper with rows of addresses and dates. Each one crossed out in red, all but one. The last line said, Henderson Lot, 11:19, final night. That was tonight. When Luke came into the kitchen, towel around his shoulders, I tried to sound casual. Big night? He looked at me too long before smiling. You could say that. I stared at the coffee pot as it hissed. You never told me what this job actually is, he chuckled. You wouldn't believe me if I did. Try me. He leaned close, lowering his voice. It's cleanup work. The kind that keeps people safe. The way he said it, calm, proud, almost reverent, made the hair rise on my arms. Cleanup of what? When he left that night, I didn't follow right away. I waited until the house fell silent, then went to his desk. It was neat, almost obsessively so, but behind the framed photo of us, I found a key taped to the back, an old brass, stamped with the number 17. It didn't fit any lock in the house. That detail haunted me. By midnight, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to the Henderson Lot. The name alone made my stomach knot. It was an abandoned construction site out past the old highway. Fenced off, but easy to slip into. The moon was low, silver light slicing through fog. Luke's truck was there. The engine was off, but the headlights were still on, washing the clearing in a pale, vibrating glow. I crept closer, staying behind a stack of concrete blocks. The generator hummed softly. Then I saw him, standing in the middle of the lot, phone flashlight aimed at the ground. He wasn't alone. There were shapes, outlines of things half buried in dirt covered in tarps. My chest tightened. Not people, and at least I didn't think so. Boxes, metal cases, each marked with a number. Luke was speaking quietly into his phone. I couldn't hear the words, just his tone, serious, steady, official. Then he crouched and unlocked one of the cases. Inside, a faint light pulsed, blue, mechanical, unnatural. He stared at it for a long time, then whispered something that sounded like, "That's the last of them." I stumbled back, my shoe crunching on gravel. The sound echoed through the lot like thunder. Luke's head snapped up. "Who's there?" My heart stopped. I ducked behind the concrete and held my breath. Footsteps approached, and slow, measured, deliberate, then silence. When I peeked up, he was standing right in front of the blocks, staring straight at me, only his eyes looked wrong. Dilated, flat, like the pupils didn't quite focus. "Emily," he said softly. "You shouldn't be here." I wanted to speak, but my throat locked up. He smiled, not kindly. "You always find me. No matter how many times I tell you not to." My hands were shaking. "What are those boxes, Luke?" He tilted his head. "You don't remember?" I ran. I don't even remember getting back to the car. The next thing I knew, I was home, locked inside, curtains drawn, every light on. But when I finally looked out the window, his truck was already in the driveway. He'd beaten me back. He came inside like nothing had happened, humming that same tune again, tracking dirt across the rug. "Rough night," he said casually. I forced my voice steady. "I went to Henderson Lot." He froze just for a second. Then he smiled. "Of course you did. What were those boxes?" He didn't answer. "Luke, tell me the truth." He looked at me then, really looked. "You keep asking the wrong questions." "What's that supposed to mean?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The question isn't what I'm doing out there. It's why you keep forgetting what you've already seen." "I don't understand." "You never do," he murmured. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a small black object and set it on the table. A flash drive. He pushed it toward me. "Go ahead. Watch it." When he left for his shower, I plugged it into my laptop. There were only 2 video files. The first was security footage, shaky, grainy. It showed me standing in a clearing at night, staring down at a metal case. Then Luke stepping beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. In the video, I was smiling, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then together, we sealed the box and rolled it into the pit. The timestamp was 3 weeks ago. The second video was worse. It was inside our house, the kitchen. I was sitting at the table crying, saying, I don't remember anything after the drive. Luke was behind the camera. That's okay, he said. It's better if you don't. Then the video ended. When he came back, I confronted him. What did you do to me? He sighed, running a towel through his hair. You keep asking that. And every time I give you the same answer. What answer? He leaned close, whispering, You wanted to forget. You begged me to help you forget. My voice cracked. Forget what? He smiled faintly. The project. Our project. Then he reached into his pocket and held up the brass key, the same one I'd found earlier. Time to start over, he said softly. That night, I dreamed of lights flickering beneath the soil, dozens of small blue glows pulsing like buried heartbeats. When I woke, the house was quiet. Luke was gone. The key was on my nightstand. Attached to it was a note. You'll remember when it's time. It's been a week now. The woods outside our window hum at night, low, mechanical, alive. I hear the sound sometimes through the floorboards, like something underneath is turning on, waiting. Luke hasn't come home, but sometimes, when I look at the reflection in the window, I swear I see him standing behind me, smiling, holding that shovel, and I think, maybe he was right. Maybe I was there from the beginning. Maybe I was the one who started the midnight job. I always thought couples who shared passwords were either insanely trusting or secretly controlling. Luke was the trusting kind, or at least that's what I believed for the first 3 years of our marriage. He'd left his laptop open hundreds of times. No locked folders, no fake secrecy. His phone password was my birthday. His Google account stayed logged in on the living room computer. It was also open that it had to be safe, right? Except he never changed that one password. The one for the old email account he'd had since college. The one he said was full of spam and ancient junk. Every time I'd ask why he didn't just delete it, he'd shrug. Some things are better left buried, he'd joke. That line used to make me laugh. Now it makes my skin crawl. The night everything changed. Luke was on a work trip. He called around 9:30 p.m., told me he'd be out of town until Friday, that he loved me, that I should keep the doors locked, just in case. Just in case of what? He didn't say. After we hung up, I went to close his laptop. But something on the screen caught my eye. A notification from that old email address. New message. Subject, you promised you'd delete these. The sender's name was just A. My pulse skipped. I don't know why, but my first thought wasn't cheating. It was fear. The message preview under the subject line said, You can't keep hiding what's in those drafts. I clicked it. The body of the email was short. They found me. You should have wiped everything. If she opens them, it's on you. No attachments. No signature. I stared at it for a long time, trying to decide if it was some weird scam, until I noticed the folder count on the left side of the screen. Inbox, 1. Trash, 0. Drafts, 13. 13 drafts. But every single one had a different date. The most recent was from yesterday. The first draft opened blank for a moment, then loaded a wall of text, messy and frantic, like it had been written in a panic. I didn't mean to. She wasn't supposed to see it. If anyone ever finds this, it wasn't me. It was her. She started it. My stomach turned. The second draft was just a photo. A dark room with a faint blue light and something that looked like a reflection of two people. Maybe Luke and someone else. The timestamp 2:47 a.m. The same time I usually woke to find him missing from bed. I told myself to stop, to shut the laptop and wait until he came home. But my curiosity had already dug its claws in. Draft 3 was worse. She doesn't remember what she does when she sleeps. I clean up after. I keep her safe. But it's getting harder to hide. The next few were jumbled sentences, fragmented, filled with names and numbers that made no sense, and except one name appeared over and over again. Ava, the same initial from the email. The house felt colder suddenly. I checked the thermostat, normal. But my reflection in the window looked pale, stretched off. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. Don't open the last one. I dropped the phone. The sender's name blinked briefly before disappearing. Ava. I should have listened, but I didn't. I opened the final draft, and for a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't an email. It was a video link, private, unlisted. The thumbnail was our living room. I clicked play. The video showed me. sitting on the couch talking to someone behind the camera. My hands were shaking, but I was smiling. The kind of fake, terrified smile people wear when they're trying to seem normal. Then Luke's voice said, "Tell me what you did." And my voice answered, flat and quiet. "I found her phone. I know about Ava." The me on screen started crying, whispering, "She said you'd do this to me." Luke didn't reply. He just kept filming. Then the lights flickered, and the screen went black. The file ended there. I sat in the dark, shaking, the laptop humming softly in front of me. It felt like the room was shrinking, the air thick, electric, and then my phone buzzed again. Another message from the same number. "He told me you'd watch that. He always makes sure you see it right before he comes back." Before I could type a response, another message came through. "Check the hallway camera." We didn't have hallway cameras. At least, I thought we didn't. I opened the home security app, something Luke had set up a year ago but said was just for show. When I clicked devices, there it was, hallway cam active. The feed was black and white, empty for a second. Then, movement, a door opening, my front door, and Luke walking in, hours before he was supposed to be home. He looked up, directly at the camera, and smiled. I froze. The notification tone pinged again on my phone. "Don't let him know you saw. Act normal. I'll contact you tomorrow." I shut the laptop, locked my phone, and sat there as Luke's footsteps moved through the hallway. The floor creaking the way it always did, but slower, more deliberate. When he came into the living room, his smile was soft and familiar. "Surprise," he said. "Got home early. I tried to sound casual." "You scared me," he laughed quietly. "I know." Then his eyes drifted to the laptop. "Working late?" "Just emails," I said. He stepped closer, fingers brushing the lid. "Old ones?" My throat went dry. "Yeah," I managed. "Spam." He nodded slowly, gaze locked on mine for a moment too long. Then he smiled again, that same polite, calm smile that never reached his eyes. "Good," he said softly. "Because some things really are better left buried." And just before he turned away, I caught sight of something on his wrist. A faint red mark, shaped like a small letter. An A. I didn't sleep after Luke came home. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that black and white hallway feed and the way he'd looked straight into the camera, as if he'd known I was watching. At sunrise, he was already gone again. The house felt wrong without him. Not empty, just listening. When I opened my phone, there was another text from the unknown number. "Check draft 12. Don't delete anything yet." My pulse quickened. I powered up the laptop and scrolled to draft 12. It wasn't an email. It was a text file. A list of login credentials, all for me. Bank accounts. Social media. Even my work login. At the bottom, one more entry. Security hub, hallway cam, admin access, AVA. It wasn't a name. It was a username. When I logged in with the code from the draft, the screen filled with thumbnails of recorded clips. Hundreds of them. Dates stretching back months. I clicked the most recent one. It was last night. Luke standing over me while I slept, whispering something too soft to hear. Then him setting a small object on my nightstand, one of the flash drive. He turned toward the camera, whispered, "Reset successful." My skin prickled. I scrolled further back to older clips. Every few weeks, the same thing. Luke watching me sleep, sometimes speaking softly, sometimes not. Each time a new flash drive in his hand. And always the whisper, "Reset successful." The texts kept coming throughout the morning. "He's been looping you." The resets wipe memory. "He thinks you forget. Don't confront him yet." Collect proof, looping. I thought of the strange gaps in my memory. Missing hours, half-remembered fights. A constant sense of déjà vu. Maybe this was the proof. I downloaded the footage to an external drive and hid it in my purse. He came home early again. "No warning, miss me?" he asked lightly. He poured himself coffee, his movements too measured, too calm. "Funny thing," he said, stirring sugar. I checked my old email. Looks like someone's been poking around. My throat tightened. "Spam bots, maybe?" He smiled. "Maybe." Then, almost casually, he asked, "Do you remember the first night we moved in here?" "Of course." "What did we hang over the couch?" That photo from the lake." He tilted his head. No, that was year 2. Silence. He set down his cup. See? The resets help. After he went upstairs, I noticed something odd about the living room wall. The photo from the lake hung slightly crooked. Behind it, a faint outline, a square cut into the plaster. I lifted the frame. There was a small panel with a keypad. 4 digits already smudged from use. VA. When I pressed those letters on the number pad, 282, the panel clicked open. Inside was another flash drive and a printed page that said, "If you're reading this, he failed the last reset. Play the audio. Remember who started this?" I locked myself in the bathroom and plugged the drive into a portable speaker. My own voice filled the room. "This is Emily. If you're hearing this, the loops didn't hold. He's rewriting both of us, copying our memories into the system. Ava isn't a person. It's the archive," Static crackled. Then Luke's voice cut in. "You said you wanted to forget. The guilt. The accident. I gave you peace, but you keep breaking it." More static. Then my voice again, shaking. "He calls it cleanup work. Every reset wipes the last version of me. If you remember this, run." The recording ended with the same whisper I'd heard in every video. "Reset successful." I opened the security program one last time. A new entry flashed at the top of the feed. "Reset Protocol 17, pending countdown 10 minutes. He was doing it again. I unplugged the router, yanked cords from the wall, smashed the modem. But the countdown kept ticking on the laptop screen. Independent, glowing faintly blue. The same color as the light from the videos. I ran upstairs. Luke's office door was closed. Light seeped through the crack beneath it. The hum of servers filled the air, a low mechanical heartbeat. When I pushed the door open, rows of drives blinked blue across his desk, labeled with dates and my name. Each one, Emily V1, Emily V2, and so on. He was sitting there calm, hands folded. "You shouldn't have looked," he said softly. "What did you do to me?" "I kept you safe," he said. "Every time you found the truth, you broke. This is the only way you survive it." I shook my head. "No more resets," he smiled. "Then remember everything." And pressed enter. The next thing I remember is light. Bright, white, silent. The hum is gone. The drives are gone. I'm sitting at the same desk, typing this. Luke is nowhere in the house. His laptop still glows, a single window open. New user profile created, Ava Emily. When I move the mouse, the cursor hesitates like someone else is controlling it from far away. I think I understand now. Ava wasn't warning me. She was me, an older version reaching through the archive. Every time he reset me, she left pieces behind. Drafts, messages, clues. I don't know if Luke is real anymore or just another loop built to keep the story running. But the countdown clock has returned and the numbers keep falling. 9 minutes. 8. If I upload this, maybe the next version will find it faster. Maybe she'll break the loop. Or maybe she'll just open the same old email, read the same line, and whisper the same thing I'm whispering now as the screen flickers blue. Reset successful. The night started with candlelight and ended with static. Luke had been acting sweet all week. Flowers on Monday, surprise texts on Tuesday, breakfast in bed Wednesday. The sudden affection should have felt romantic, but it didn't. It felt rehearsed, like he was practicing a role. Our 5th anniversary dinner was his idea. No distractions, he said, just us, like before. He even booked the same restaurant where we'd had our first date, though it had changed, new name, new menu. Too many mirrors. From the moment we sat down, something was wrong. The waiter brought wine I didn't order, a vintage I didn't recognize but that Luke requested without even glancing at the list. "You remember," he said, raising his glass. "It's our bottle, except it wasn't. I'd never tasted it in my life." He watched me sip, smiling just a little too long. "Good? It's strong," I said. He nodded. "You used to love that." The words landed like stones. Used to. The conversation felt edited, like he was skipping pages in a script only he could see. "Do you still dream about the cabin?" he asked suddenly. "What cabin?" He blinked. "The one by the lake." "We've never had a cabin, Luke." He smiled politely as if humoring a child. "Right, I forgot we sold it." Halfway through dinner, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and quickly flipped it face down. I caught just a flash of the name, unknown number, AA. Again. I felt the same pressure in my chest I'd felt that night months ago when the email arrived. A suffocating déjà vu. "Who's that?" I asked. He didn't miss a beat. "Work. On our anniversary?" He laughed softly. "Projects don't stop for holidays." But his fingers tightened around the phone. The waiter brought dessert. Chocolate tart. Another thing I'd never ordered, but Luke insisted was our favorite. He raised his glass again. "To 5 years." I echoed him because that's what you do when you're trying not to make a scene. When the wine touched my lips, the room seemed to tilt. Not drunk, just heavy. My vision narrowed for a moment. "Are you okay?" Luke asked. "Fine," I lied. "Just lightheaded," he smiled. "You always say that." On the drive home, the radio kept cutting out, replaced by bursts of faint whispers, fragments of sentences that dissolved when I turned the dial. At one point, Luke reached over and squeezed my hand. "I missed this," he said. "Missed what?" Normal nights. His palm was cold. Too cold. Back home, the dining table was already set. Candles, plates, wine glasses. Identical to the restaurant. I froze in the doorway. "Did you do this before we left?" "Of course," he said. "Tradition. But I'd cleaned that table earlier." There hadn't been anything on it. He guided me to a chair, poured more wine. The smell hit stronger this time, sharp and metallic. "Luke," I said slowly. "Why are we doing this twice?" He smiled faintly. "Because you always forget the first one." Something inside me snapped. "Stop saying that." He looked genuinely hurt. "Saying what?" "That I forget. Like I'm broken." He didn't answer right away. Then he whispered, "You're not broken. You're rehearsing." I stared at him. "Rehearsing what?" He reached across the table and took my hand, eyes gleaming in the candlelight. "The ending." I jerked my hand away and stood. "What's going on, Luke?" He sighed, almost disappointed. "Every year it unravels sooner. You start asking too many questions." "What are you talking about?" He glanced at his watch. "We still have time. Sit down, please." "No." He stood too, moving toward me slowly, his shadow stretching across the floor. "Emily, if you just finished dinner, it resets cleanly. No pain. No confusion." The words made no sense and too much sense at once. "Reset?" I whispered. He smiled sadly. "You don't want to remember." I grabbed my purse and ran. Outside, the night was silent. No cars, no wind, no city hum. Just a stillness so absolute it made my ears ring. When I looked back through the window, Luke was standing perfectly still at the table, wine glass raised, staring into the empty chair where I'd been sitting. Then the lights flickered once, twice, and he was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I drove aimlessly until dawn, ended up parked near the old restaurant again. Except in daylight, it wasn't there. The sign was gone. The windows boarded up. According to my phone, the building had been abandoned for 3 years, but I still had the receipt from last night. Date, time, total. And at the bottom, in neat handwriting where the tip line should be, a single word, reset. The morning after the anniversary, I sat in my car watching the boarded-up restaurant. The sunlight made it look even less real. A hollow, empty shell. No tables, no chairs, no candlelight, and yet, my phone still had last night's photos. The mirror-lined walls, the red candles, the tart on my plate. I zoomed in on one picture. In the reflection behind Luke's shoulder, a shadow. Someone else sitting 2 tables away, a woman, blonde hair, pale skin. And when I brightened the image, my stomach dropped. She looked exactly like me. The word reset stared up at me from the paper. I flipped it over, hoping for a clue, and noticed faint print bleeding through the back. It wasn't restaurant text, it was coordinates. When I entered them into maps, the pin landed on a spot near the lake, the one Luke had mentioned during dinner. The cabin, except we never had one. The dirt road was barely visible. Trees hung low, blocking out most of the sky. After a few miles, I saw it. A small cabin with peeling white paint and a single light flickering inside. My name was carved into the mailbox. When I pushed the door open, a wave of stale air hit me, dust, rot, and something faintly metallic. The interior looked like it had been frozen in time. 2 plates on the table, a half-empty wine bottle, and on the counter a stack of envelopes labeled Anniversary 15. My hands shook as I opened the first. If you're reading this, you've broken the cycle early again. Luke will find you soon. Don't drink the wine. Don't go back to the house. Remember, you chose this once. The second envelope held a photo. Me and Luke smiling in front of this very cabin. The date on the back said 2019. But in 2019, we weren't married yet. In the corner of the room was a small cassette player. A note on top said, "Play me when you're ready." I pressed play. My voice came through, shaky but calm. "This is anniversary 5. The loops are breaking faster." He doesn't remember either now, that's the problem. He thinks he's fixing me, but every reset rebuilds him too. "You'll start forgetting soon, Emily. It's safer that way." Then Luke's voice cut in, distorted and faint. "If we stop, we lose her. You said you wanted forever." Static swallowed the rest. I almost missed it. A trap door beneath a rug. A key hung beside the fridge. The tag said, "Reset access." The moment I turned the lock, the faint hum began, low, electric, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath the floor. The air down there was colder, damp, the walls lined with flickering screens, each one showing me, eating dinner, sleeping, laughing, crying. On the far wall, one monitor showed last night's dinner, except Luke wasn't alone this time. There were 2 of me at the table, one smiling. One staring blankly. The smiling one lifted her glass. "To 5 years," the other whispered. "Not again." Then the screen went black. A computer sat humming beside the monitors. Its desktop was a folder named Anniversary Loop. Inside were dozens of subfolders. Year 01, Year 02, Year 03. All the way to year 1414, I opened the oldest file. Notes, video logs, timestamps. First attempt successful. Memory imprint stable. Subject responds positively to repetition. Emotional degradation minimal. Then the later logs changed. Anomalies appearing in subject 2. She recognizes herself on playback. Memory bleed from prior cycles. Recommend reset. The final note read, "If she reads this, it means she escaped again. Contained before reset expires." Footsteps creaked above me. Slow, heavy. Then his voice. "M, you shouldn't be here." I froze. He sounded calm, almost gentle. But every word echoed wrong, as if 2 voices were overlapping slightly out of sync. "Luke?" A pause, then, "Come upstairs. We can talk about it. I didn't move." "I know what you found," he continued. "But it's not what you think. You asked me to do this. Every time you beg me to bring it back, bring what back?" I whispered. "Our wedding night." His shadow appeared on the basement wall as he descended the stairs. Tall, steady, familiar. "You died," he said softly. "In the car. 5 years ago tonight, my breath caught." He took another step down. "You asked me not to let go. I built this to keep you close. The resets, the dinners, they're how I remember you. But the system keeps making copies. Glitches, versions that think they're real." He smiled sadly. "Like you." My voice trembled. "So what am I?" He hesitated. "The closest one yet." The monitors flickered again. The basement lights dimmed, every screen filled with static too, and then dozens of faces. All me. They were watching from inside the monitors, their eyes glassy, some whispering silently, others mouthing the same word over and over. "Reset." Luke reached toward the console. "Please, Emily, let me start again. We can have dinner like before." I stepped back. "No." The ground shuddered. The screens began flashing faster, voices overlapping. My own voice, multiplied and fractured. "Stop him. End it. Remember." The wine bottle from the counter still sat on a nearby shelf. I grabbed it and smashed it against the controls. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the air. Luke shouted, reaching for me. But as the lights exploded, his body flickered like bad video, then froze mid-motion, fading into static. When I woke, it was daylight again. The cabin was empty. No monitors, no hum, no Luke, just a single envelope on the table. Inside, one sentence: "You asked for release. You're free now." Outside, the world looked normal. Birds, wind, sunlight. But when I checked my phone, the wallpaper wasn't mine. It was a photo of Luke and me at dinner. The timestamp read tomorrow, 8:15 p.m., and the note under it said, "Table reserved for 2." The first time I saw the house, it already felt like it was watching me. Luke said it was a surprise. We'd been renting a small apartment for years, saving for something we could call ours. I thought we'd pick it together, spend weekends touring listings, fighting over kitchen counters and paint colors. Instead, he handed me a key. "Happy birthday," he said. I didn't even know he'd been looking. The house sat at the end of a narrow road lined with dead trees, 2 stories, faded blue paint, a porch swing that creaked even without wind. It looked lonely. I forced a smile. "You bought this? Without telling me?" He grinned like a kid showing off a science project. I wanted it to be romantic. No paperwork stress, no decisions. Just a fresh start. There was that phrase again, fresh start. He used it a lot lately. When I stepped inside, the air smelled like cedar and old rain. Everything was furnished. Couches, dishes, even framed photos on the walls. Except the faces in the photos weren't ours. At first I thought they were placeholders, stock images left by a realtor. But these weren't glossy prints. They were real photographs, slightly faded, the kind people take on Polaroids. A woman and a man, smiling, holding hands in front of the same house. The woman looked a little like me. Same build, same hair color, just older. I turned one frame around. On the back, written in neat cursive, Luke and Mara, 2018. My stomach went cold. "Who's Mara?" I asked. He froze mid-step. "What?" I showed him the photo. He stared at it for a long moment, then laughed. A dry, nervous sound. "Must have been the previous owners? Creepy that they left those up, huh?" He took the picture from me and slipped it into a drawer. That night, while unpacking, I found more of her. A hairbrush with long brown strands tangled in it. Lipstick on the vanity. Even a jewelry box with the initials MB carved inside. When I confronted Luke again, he shrugged. "I told you, babe. Old stuff. I'll toss it tomorrow." But he didn't. Days passed, and the house still felt like it belonged to someone else. Every drawer I opened, every corner I dusted, something of hers was there. And sometimes faintly, I swore I smelled her perfume. The only place Luke told me not to go was the basement. "It's full of junk," he said. "Wiring's weird. I'll clear it out when I get time." The door was locked, but not with a regular lock and a keypad. I remember joking, "What, do you keep treasure down there?" He didn't laugh. I started hearing things around the 3rd week, not whispers, more like echoes. My own voice repeating words seconds after I said them. One night I called out, "Luke?" And from the hallway faintly, "Luke?" When I went to check, the hall was empty. I told myself it was acoustics. Old houses creak, right? But the next evening, when Luke came home late from work, he walked in smiling, kissed me on the forehead and whispered, "Mara, you're shaking." He froze when he realized what he'd said, then quickly corrected himself. "Sorry, Emily. Long day." I started digging. The closing papers were in his office drawer, neatly stacked. My name wasn't on a single page. Buyer, Luke Harris. Previous owner, Mara Benton. Sale date 2 years ago. I blinked at the date again. 2 years. That was before Luke and I even met. A few days later, a woman from down the road stopped by with a pie. She looked at me oddly. "I didn't think anyone would move back in," she said. "Back in?" She nodded. "After what happened to that poor woman?" "What was her name?" "Oh, Mara." I felt my throat close. "What happened to her?" The neighbor hesitated. They said it was an accident. Fell down the basement stairs, but no one saw her leave the house after that. She lowered her voice. "Her husband disappeared too." "Her husband?" I whispered. "You mean Luke?" The woman frowned. "No, I think his name was Mark, or Matt, something like that," she shrugged. "Anyway, spooky place. Good luck with it." Then she left me standing there on the porch, shaking. That night I waited until Luke fell asleep. Then I took his phone, passcode my birthday, the same as always. But inside his gallery were hundreds of photos I didn't recognize. Some were of me, asleep. Others, older, grainier, were of her. Mara. Same bedroom. Same poses. And in the oldest ones, the date stamp read 2018. He hadn't bought this house for me. He'd bought it for her, or worse, of her, at 3 a.m. A metallic click woke me. The keypad lock on the basement door blinked green. Slowly, The door creaked open. A cool draft swept up the stairs, carrying that same faint scent of perfume. Floral, old, heavy. Luke stirred beside me, eyes half open. "Don't go down there," he murmured, but his voice wasn't warning. It was command. And just before he turned over, still half asleep, he whispered something that made my heart stop. "She doesn't like when you come down early." I waited until morning. The lock was still unlatched. The keypad dark. I opened the door. Wooden steps led into the dark. The air was colder than outside, thick with damp. At the bottom, like a single bare bulb hanging over a concrete floor, and beneath it, a door, half open, the faint hum of electricity behind it. When I pushed it open, I saw a small room lined with monitors, feeds from cameras in every room of the house. Bedroom, kitchen, living room, even this basement, all recording. But one feed made me freeze. The view of a woman sitting on the porch swing, humming softly. I walked upstairs and opened the front door. The swing was empty. But on the screen downstairs, she was still there, smiling, looking right at the camera. The woman on the swing didn't move, but the video kept looping. Every few seconds, her head tilted a little further, like she was trying to hear something. Then she smiled, small, tight, knowing, and the feed froze. I stood there in the basement, breathing hard, the hum of the monitors buzzing under my skin. That smile, I'd seen it before. In the old photographs, it was her, Mara. A small light blinked on one of the monitors. Playback available. I pressed the key. The screen showed Luke in the kitchen, setting up a camera on a tripod. He looked younger, maybe by a few years. But it was definitely him. "Trial 3, he said quietly. "Memory integration stable. Subject shows consistent behavioral mirroring." He turned toward the stairs. "Mara, dinner's ready." Footsteps. And then I walked into the frame, my stomach lurched. It was me, same face, same hair, but not my clothes, not my mannerisms. She sat down, smiling like she'd done it 100 times before. "Did it work?" she asked. "Almost," Luke said. "There are gaps. You'll fix them. Always do." The video glitched, flickered, and ended. I grabbed Luke's tools from the shelf and pried the keypad from the basement door. Behind it was a second, smaller screen, a maintenance interface. One line of text pulsed faintly. Subject 2. Status. Active. Below it, a button. Deactivate. My fingers hovered over it when I heard the front door open upstairs. He called out casually, "Em, you home?" I slammed the basement door shut and wiped my hands. He came in holding takeout bags, acting like everything was normal. "Thought I'd surprise you," he said. "Your favorite," I forced a smile. "You've been doing that a lot lately." He looked puzzled. "Doing what?" "Surprising me, houses, dinners, lives." His eyes narrowed just slightly. "You've been in the basement." I said nothing. He set the bags down. "You shouldn't go down there. It messes with your head." "What's down there, Luke?" "Old work. Experiments that didn't pan out." "Experiments like her?" Silence. He exhaled slowly. "So you've seen her?" He sat at the table, elbows on his knees, voice quiet. "When Mara died, I couldn't accept it. I started working with a lab, memory modeling, behavioral reconstruction. They said we could preserve patterns. A version of her that felt real." He looked up. "It worked." "Too well," I whispered. "You rebuilt her?" He shook his head. "I recorded her. The program filled the blanks. Then after she started fading, I used you." "Used me how?" "You were compatible. Similar brain map. When we met, you said things she used to say. You laughed the same way. It was perfect. I felt sick. So He stood. "No, you're you. But the system links you. She comes back through the recordings? Through you. That's why I bought the house. The signal's anchored here." The wind picked up outside, the old porch swing groaning in rhythm. Luke turned toward the sound. "She's close again." I backed away. "You're insane," he smiled faintly. "You'll understand soon. You always do." I ran to the door and yanked it open. The swing was moving, slow, steady, bang, but no one sat on it. The ropes creaked as if under invisible weight. Then a voice, soft and familiar, drifted through the air. He never finished my story. Inside, every mirror in the house started to hum. The air shimmered, glass vibrating with faint ripples. In the hallway mirror, a woman's face surfaced. Mine, but not mine. Her lips moved. "He promised." Luke stepped behind me. "Don't listen. It's residual data, noise. She's talking to me," I whispered. He grabbed my shoulders. "That's not her," but the reflection smiled. "Then who am I?" The glass cracked down the center, splintering both of our faces. I ran back to the basement, Luke shouting my name. The monitors were flickering again, code spilling across them. Thousands of lines. Repeating the same message. Merge in progress. On the screen beside it, 2 profiles pulsed side by side. Subject 1, Mara Benton. Subject 2, Emily Harris underneath. Synchronization, 95%. The hum rose to a roar. Luke burst in, breathless. "It's too late," he said. "The system's linking you. Once it finishes, there'll be no separation. You'll remember everything." I reached for the control panel. "Then what happens to her?" "She fades. That's the rules, and if I stop it, she keeps the body." He met my eyes. "You won't like being her, Emily." I pressed deactivate, light flared, searing white like a camera flash that didn't end. I heard Luke scream, then the sound folded in on itself, a digital crack tearing through the room. When the brightness faded, I was on the floor. The monitors were dark. Luke lay still beside me. I crawled to him. "Luke?" He opened his eyes, distant, dazed, and whispered, "Mara?" Something inside me went cold. I caught my reflection in the black screen. The face staring back was smiling faintly, and her voice layered over mine said, "Took long enough, it's been 3 days. Luke hasn't woken up again. The authorities said he overdosed on medication. They didn't find the basement lab. It's gone. The floor perfectly solid. But sometimes when I pass the hallway mirror, my reflection doesn't match. It lags, smiles too soon, and at night the porch swing moves on its own, steady and patient. I try not to look, because deep down I know I'm the one moving it. The footage shouldn't have existed. That's what keeps looping in my head every time I press play. It shouldn't have existed, because the date stamped in the corner was 3 days after he died. It started with a delivery I never ordered. A brown cardboard box, no return label, just my name written in my husband's handwriting. He'd been gone for 6 months. Car accident, instant death, that's what they told me. But seeing his handwriting again, messy, confident, the way he wrote his L with a loop, it felt like someone punched me in the chest. I sat on the kitchen floor staring at it for almost an hour before opening it. Inside was his old camera, a heavy black DSLR with a cracked lens cap, the one he used for his photography hobby. I hadn't seen it since the day before he died. There was also a note tucked under the strap. Just one line. "Don't delete anything. You'll understand soon." I charged the camera that night. It whirred to life with a faint mechanical hum, the same sound that used to fill our apartment when he was editing photos late into the night. There was only one folder on the memory card, labeled Private 4. Inside 6 video files. The first one was dated the day he died. When I pressed play, I expected footage of him hiking or something. He loved filming scenery. Instead, it was the inside of our bedroom, empty. For 3 full minutes, nothing moved. Then the camera tilted slightly as if someone had touched it. The screen went black for a moment, and when it came back, I saw myself. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Same clothes I'd worn that morning, same hair tie, same posture. He had filmed me without me knowing. I turned off the camera and sat there, heart pounding. But curiosity won. It always does. Luke had always been secretive about his documentary. That's what he called it. He said he was filming patterns, trying to capture moments people don't see. I thought it was an art thing. I didn't ask questions. Now I wish I had, because when I opened the second clip, it was him, sitting in front of the camera whispering. She doesn't remember, but she's repeating. Every 7 days, same expression, same times. I think it's working. He looked wired, tired, not like himself. His hair was unkempt, his eyes ringed with dark circles. If you find this, Em, it means I failed. But keep watching. It'll make sense. He leaned closer to the lens. You'll see what I saw. That night, I woke up to the sound of the camera shutter clicking. It was sitting on my dresser, facing the bed. The light on the side was blinking red, recording. I threw the blanket off and yanked the battery out. My hands were shaking. But when I turned to the door, I swear I saw movement in the hallway, just a flicker, like someone slipping around the corner. The smell of his cologne lingered for a second before fading. The third video was dated 3 days after his death. That was impossible. It showed our living room. The camera was fixed on the couch, my spot. For the first minute, the frame was empty. Then I walked in, but I didn't remember that. I wasn't wearing what I wore to the funeral. My hair was down. I looked blank. I sat on the couch, looked at the camera, and whispered, "It's not over." Then the video cut out. I took the camera to my neighbor, Jamie. She's a tech whiz, always fixing people's laptops. I didn't tell her everything, just asked her to check the metadata. She frowned. "These timestamps are weird. They were edited, or more like rewritten. The internal clock's been altered manually. Could someone fake that?" I asked. She shrugged. "Sure, but they'd need access to the original device. And from the looks of this, the card hasn't been removed in months." I asked her to back everything up anyway. Before I left, she looked at me and said, "You know he didn't send this, right? The sender ID on the shipping label is blank." That night, I locked the camera in my closet. But sometime around 2 a.m., I heard that same soft click. I turned on the light. The closet door was open. The camera sat on the floor, pointed toward the bed. I forced myself to press play right there. This time, it showed him, Luke, walking into the room. He looked around like he was searching for something. Then he sat on the bed and said quietly, "I left the camera for you because you're still in here. I couldn't save you the first time." He looked straight into the lens. "If you remember anything, don't look behind you." The video cut to static, and of course, I looked. Nothing. Just the dark window, the shape of trees swaying outside, but for one split second, I thought I saw a reflection move across the glass, a shape standing exactly where I was sitting. For the next few days, I left the camera unplugged. Still, sometimes I'd find it moved, to an inch here, a different angle there. Then came the smell. A faint electrical burn like overheated wires. One morning, I woke to find every light in the house on, and the camera glowing faintly blue. When I picked it up, the screen showed a single line of text. "Recording memory 06. Continuation." I dropped it. The screen went dark, but when I looked down, the camera's reflection in the mirror showed the recording light still blinking. I checked the SD card again. A new folder had appeared. Stills too. Hundreds of photos. All of me. Sleeping, cooking, brushing my hair. And in the corner of every photo, blurred and half in shadow, was him. Sometimes he was behind me. Sometimes next to me. Always out of focus. The last photo froze me completely, because I was standing outside, in front of our house and wearing the same clothes I had on right now, and the timestamp was 2 minutes ago. I started recording myself, desperate proof that I wasn't losing it. "November 3rd, I said into my phone. "I just found a picture of me taken today. I'm the only one here." When I played it back, there was an extra voice layered under mine, faint, distorted. "You weren't supposed to see that yet." The phone crashed. In the attic, I found one of his notebooks and leather-bound, water-damaged. Inside, pages and pages of scrawled notes. Pattern persists. Camera doesn't record time. It records memory. Subject continues cycle even after termination, and circled at the bottom of one page. If you're reading this, she's already started again. Jamie came over after I begged her to. I told her I was scared, that the camera wouldn't stop recording even without power. When she picked it up, the screen flickered, and for a second, the image showed her standing in the doorway, but she hadn't walked in yet. Then the light died completely. "Okay," she said, handing it back. "That's officially too weird. I'd get rid of it." But when she left, I saw something on her wrist in the reflection. A faint red mark, circular, like a camera lens burn. That night, every device in the house turned on. The TV, the laptop, even the microwave clock started flashing 0000. On every screen, the same looping footage, Luke sitting in front of the camera. He was whispering again. Memory holds shape. It fills the gaps. "You're almost complete now." Then almost gently, "Don't look away when you see me this time." I unplugged everything, screaming. But the sound didn't stop. It was still coming from somewhere deeper, under the floorboards maybe. And when I finally traced it, I realized it wasn't coming from the camera. It was coming through it like a voice echoing out of glass. I drove the camera to the lake where his accident happened, sat on the hood of my car staring at the black water, feeling stupid for talking to a dead man. "You need to stop," I said out loud. "You have to let me go." The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain and engine oil. Then the camera turned on by itself. "It's not me," his voice said softly. "It's you." And for the first time, I realized every video, every whisper, every message. It wasn't him reaching out, it was me answering. When I got home, I played the final clip. The screen showed the camera lying on my kitchen table, exactly where it was right now. Then, slowly a hand reached into frame and picked it up. My hand. The lens turned, facing the viewer, facing me. And in the reflection of the lens, just before the video ended, I saw a face smiling back. Not Luke, not me. Something wearing both our faces. The last clip hasn't stopped playing. I deleted it, reformatted the card, even smashed the lens. But when I turn on the camera, it still shows the same thing. My hand reaching out, my face smiling back. It doesn't feel like watching a recording anymore. It feels like looking into a window. 3 nights after the lake, the camera powered on by itself again. A new folder appeared, continues 07, no thumbnails this time. Just audio files. The first one began with static, then his voice. "You can't destroy memory. You can only join it." A pause. "If you're hearing this, it's already rewritten you." I dropped the camera and stepped back. It hit the floor and landed facing upward, the lens cracked, light blinking like a pulse. I started losing time after that. It began small, missing minutes. I'd pour coffee, blink, and the mug would be empty. Then hours. I'd wake up sitting on the couch with the TV on, no memory of turning it on. Once I found the camera on the table in front of me, the red light blinking. The playback showed me standing there motionless for an hour. At the end of the clip, I leaned close to the lens and whispered, "He's not behind the camera anymore." Then I turned it off. Jamie came back after I called her in tears. "I think it's recording me," I said, "even when it's off." She frowned and shone a flashlight into the lens. "It's dead, Em, look." The screen flickered on by itself. For a split second, we both saw movement. A shape of a man, fuzzy, all static and shadow. Then the camera powered down again. Jamie's face went white. "You need to get rid of this now." She grabbed the battery pack and walked toward the door. But by the time she reached the porch, she stopped. I called her name. She turned. Slowly, her pupils looked like camera lenses, wide, black, and reflecting light. Then she smiled. "He's still filming. Jamie left that night and I haven't seen her since." Her phone goes straight to voicemail. The next morning, a USB drive was slid under my door. No label. When I plugged it into my laptop, it contained one video file, Jamie01.mp4. It was footage of her sitting in her car, crying. "I can't stop seeing it," she whispered. "Every time I close my eyes, it's still recording. It knows when you're looking." Then her gaze lifted, staring straight at the camera. "He said it needs a host." The feed glitched, and for a frame, just one frame, the static man appeared again, standing behind her seat. I printed one of the stills from the camera, the last clear shot before the lens cracked. In it, my living room looked normal, except for the mirror in the background. Something was standing in it. A person-shaped blur, hands pressed against the glass from the inside. When I looked closer, I realized the reflection wasn't reversed. It was facing the right way, as if whoever was in it was standing in my world, looking out. I started leaving voice memos for myself, afraid I'd lose more time. Nov 10, 2:34 a.m. Camera's quiet. Feels heavier when I touch it, like it's holding something inside. Nov 11, 4:50 a.m. He's in my dreams now. Not Luke, the static man. Every time I wake up, he's closer. Nov 13, 1:12 p.m. Jamie's name is gone from my contacts. Nov 14, 3:19 a.m. The reflection smiled before I did. While cleaning, I found a hidden slot under the camera's grip, something I'd never noticed. Inside was a tiny cassette labeled Prototype M. Mara, that name again. The same woman from Luke's old house project. When I played it, his voice came through muffled and low. She worked. For a while. But memory degrades, Patterns decay. I needed something stronger. A pause. Emily fits. Perfect overlay. The camera's sinking through her. She'll keep it going. I stopped breathing. He'd used me. Again. This wasn't about art or grief or obsession. It was replication, continuation. The camera wasn't filming life. It was filming memory and replacing it with itself. That night I watched one of the older clips again. The one of me sitting on the couch, whispering, "It's not over." Only this time, halfway through, my movements changed. I wasn't replaying anymore, and I was responding. The recorded me turned her head toward the lens and said, "Stop watching." Then the power cut out across the house. In the dark, I could still see the faint red glow of the recording light. A man came to my door the next morning. Black jacket, camera company logo on his ID. "Mrs. Harris, we received a notice about a defective prototype. May I inspect it?" I froze. "Who sent that?" He smiled. "Your husband." I stepped back. "He's dead." The man's expression didn't change. "Then who signed this?" He handed me a paper, Luke's signature at the bottom. The date last week. I asked him to wait while I got the camera, but when I came back, he was gone. No car in the driveway. No footprints on the porch, only the paper. And in the corner, faintly embossed in the texture, a camera lens symbol, spinning counterclockwise. It's happening faster now. Every time I look away from the camera, it moves closer. I've started locking it in the bathroom cabinet, but somehow it ends up on the nightstand when I wake. Yesterday, I found new footage of me sleeping, time-stamped for the next day. The camera is recording ahead. It's predicting my movements, preloading the memories before they happen. And the more it records, the more I forget. I invited my sister over, desperate for normalcy. She noticed immediately. "You look exhausted." I tried to explain, but as soon as I mentioned the camera, her eyes went glassy. Like her attention just switched off. She stood up mid-sentence and walked to the mirror, staring at it. "Can you hear it?" she asked. "Hear what?" She smiled faintly. "It's almost finished." Then she turned to me, except it wasn't her anymore. Her mouth moved, but Luke's voice came out. "Thank you for keeping it alive." The basement started humming 2 nights ago. Same frequency as the camera. When I went down, there were lights flickering behind the walls, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. On the workbench sat another camera, identical to mine. A screen above it displayed a message. "Transfer complete. Subject ready." I stared at the monitor and saw my face staring back. Except the version on screen looked calmer, softer, like she'd been waiting. "It's not recording you," she said. "It's recording for you." Then the screen went black. The next morning, the apartment felt different, lighter, quieter. I made coffee, scrolled my phone, tried to convince myself everything was fine. Until I noticed something off in my Photos app. Every recent picture, every selfie, every random shot had a faint outline behind me, a second face, blurred, and in the very last one, taken automatically by my phone that morning, the caption read, "New device synced successfully." I went to the lake again, intending to sync the camera for good. I threw it as hard as I could. It disappeared beneath the surface, but when I got home, it was sitting on the kitchen counter, dry, clean, still blinking red. A single new video sat on the card, final log. In it, I was standing outside the house, smiling. Then Luke stepped into frame beside me. "We did it," he said softly. I turned to him, my recorded self, and replied, "Now she'll remember." The clip ended with the two of us looking directly at the camera. I don't know how long it's been since that day. Time doesn't feel linear anymore. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of a conversation I don't remember starting. Sometimes I hear Luke's laugh from another room. But the scariest part isn't that he's gone. It's that I'm not sure I'm still here either. Because when I look in mirrors, the reflection blinks a second too late. And every time I press record, the person in the viewfinder smiles before I do. The first time I heard her whisper my name, I thought it was the baby monitor picking up static. But then I realized the monitor wasn't even plugged in. I wasn't supposed to take that babysitting job. It was last minute, posted in a neighborhood Facebook group. Urgent, 1 night only, easy pay, infant asleep most of the time. The woman who hired me, Mrs. Hartman, sounded tired on the phone. She said she and her husband had to drive out of town unexpectedly. Everything's set up, she promised. You'll just have to keep an ear on Lily, she's 6 months. When I arrived, the house was spotless. Too spotless. Every toy lined up by size, baby bottles arranged by timestamp, and one rule, printed in bold on a note taped to the fridge: do not open the nursery door after 9 p.m. I laughed when I saw it, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. Lily was already asleep when I got there. Mrs. Hartman was polite but distant, like she was running late. She kept glancing upstairs. When I asked about the note, she just said, "It's for her routine. If she wakes up and sees someone, she'll cry for hours." Then they left. The first hour was fine. Quiet house, a little too quiet. The baby monitor sat on the counter beside me. Green light flickering softly, around 8:45. I heard movement upstairs, a soft rustle, then a short, high-pitched sound like humming, then a voice. Faint, but clear enough to make me freeze. Is she here again? The voice wasn't a baby's, it was older. I turned the volume down, heart racing. Maybe a neighbor's TV, I told myself. But the sound had come through the monitor, the same one that wasn't even connected to Wi-Fi. By 9:15, the house felt heavier. The air itself had weight. I kept glancing at the clock, counting down to when they'd return. "Midnight," she said. The monitor stayed silent until 9:30. Then came a different sound. Soft thuds, like tiny hands patting wood. Tap, 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 right through the speaker. I stood, trying to laugh it off. Babies move. Babies make noise. But when I looked at the stairs, I could see a faint light under the nursery door. It was on. They'd told me the lamp was motion activated, meaning something was moving in there. I texted Mrs. Hartman. "Hey, just checking. Lily's light came on. Should I peek in?" No reply. Another tap. Then, through the monitor, her voice again, quiet and deliberate. "You shouldn't have said yes." My skin went cold. I whispered, "Who's there?" A pause. Then the baby started crying. I told myself rules didn't matter when a child was crying. I opened the nursery door. The crib was empty. The window was locked. The room smelled like baby powder and something faintly sweet, like old perfume. The crying was still coming through the monitor. Loud now, almost distorted. But in the room, there was nothing. Just the small nightlight glowing in the corner, shaped like a rabbit. And on the wall above the crib, a faint handprint. Small and perfect, smeared in dust. I called out, "Lily!" No answer. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It was a photo, grainy, dark. The picture showed me standing in the nursery, staring at the crib. Taken from behind, I spun around, nothing. Another photo came in, seconds later. This time, I was closer to the wall. Then a third, my face turned halfway toward the camera, eyes wide like I was looking right at whoever was taking it, except I hadn't moved. The angle was slightly wrong, lower, as if taken by someone small. The closet door creaked. I told myself not to look, but my body moved anyway. Inside were boxes of old baby clothes folded neatly. A mobile hung from a hook, tangled in dust, and on the floor, a baby monitor identical to the one downstairs. But its light was red. A soft, static hiss filled the room. Then a voice. She said you'd come back. An hour later. Whatever happens, don't leave the house. We're almost there. No explanation, no apology. I sat on the stairs, trembling, staring at the door to the nursery. The crying had stopped. Then, through the red-lit monitor, came humming, the same melody I'd heard earlier, a lullaby. I remembered it suddenly. Not from that night, but from years ago, because I'd sung it once, to a baby that wasn't mine. Before I moved to this town, before I changed my name, I'd been a nanny. I took care of a little girl, same name even. Lily. She died in her sleep. That's what I told people. What I told the parents, but that wasn't true. I'd fallen asleep. She'd slipped from my arms and I'd run. I told myself no one would find out if I started over. But sitting in that house, holding a monitor that whispered my name, I knew someone had. Footsteps on the stairs. Slow. Dragging, I called out, "Mrs. Hartman?" No answer. The door opened halfway, just enough for the light from the hallway to fall on the carpet. And in that sliver of light, a shape crawled into view, small, pale, and moving wrong. The crying started again, not from the monitor this time, but from the hallway itself. I ran into the living room and grabbed my bag, ready to bolt, but the front door wouldn't open. No matter how hard I pulled, the lock wouldn't budge. The baby monitor on the counter crackled back to life. "Don't leave her again." Then static. When the Hartmans finally came home, it was nearly dawn. Mrs. Hartman's face was pale, hollow. She didn't ask questions, just walked straight upstairs. I started babbling apologies, trying to explain about the noise, the crying, the photos. She turned at the top of the stairs, eyes wet, and whispered, "There's no baby." "What?" She pointed to the crib. "We lost her last year. I told my husband hiring you was cruel." My throat closed. "Then who?" But she shook her head. "Sometimes she comes back when someone lies." When I got home, I threw the baby monitor into the trash. It landed with a crack, screen flashing once before going dark. But that night, from the other room, I heard it hum back to life. A voice, soft, almost tender. "You can tell me the truth now." I turned toward the sound, shaking, and from the darkness came a small giggle, the same one I still hear in dreams. The first time I got a text from my husband after he died, I thought it was a sick joke. Then he sent a picture, one only he could have taken. 3 weeks after the accident, my phone buzzed at 2:14 a.m. I'd been half asleep on the couch, still wearing his hoodie, still pretending the world hadn't stopped. The message preview said, "You up?" No number, just his name and Evan. Same contact photo, same typing dots. I told myself it had to be someone hacking his account. His phone had been found in the wreck, cracked screen, water damage, useless. Still, I typed back, "Who is this?" A pause, then, "You left the porch light on." My hand froze. I had left the porch light on. I hadn't told anyone. I went to the police the next day. They said messages can spoof names, that grief makes you see patterns. I didn't tell them about the voicemail. It came the next night, 21 seconds long. Evan's voice, breathing uneven like he was walking fast. "Hey, babe, I can't find my wallet. You sure I didn't leave it on the counter?" That's exactly what he'd said the morning of the crash. Word for word. I'd deleted that message weeks ago, so how was I hearing it again? 3 days later, a video came through. No caption. The footage was shaky. Evan filming himself in the car. The timestamp read that same morning. He turned the camera toward the passenger seat, empty, and laughed softly. "You're always late," he said. Then, faintly from the background, I heard my own voice, but I wasn't there that day. I tried logging into his cloud drive, the one we shared for photos. It asked for a verification code sent to his phone. Before I could close it, a new message came through. "Use your birthday." I typed it in. Access granted. Inside the drive was a single new folder created after he died. It was labeled, "For You." Inside were videos, dozens, all of me. Sleeping, cooking, crying in the shower, footage from angles that didn't exist in our house. I tore the place apart that night, checking smoke detectors, vents, mirrors. Nothing. When I finally collapsed on the couch, my phone lit up again. "You missed one." Attached was a photo of my hallway, taken from behind me. Before he died, Evan worked in home security. He'd done freelance installation for months. Smart systems, he'd called them. Cameras, door locks, sensors. He used to joke that he could break into our own place blindfolded. The week before the crash, I'd found a strange blueprint on his desk, our apartment floor plan circled with red dots. When I asked, he said it was an old client's house. He lied. The next morning, I went to our building manager, pretending I'd lost my key fob. While she printed a new one, I glanced at the tenant list. There was a unit above ours, one marked vacant, except it wasn't. That night, I heard faint footsteps through the ceiling. Then something heavier, dragging. I grabbed a broom and hit the ceiling once. Silence. Then through my phone speaker, a text came in, "Shh, you'll wake me." I couldn't sleep. By dawn, I'd made up my mind. I borrowed a step stool from the laundry room, climbed onto the counter, and pushed at the ceiling vent above our kitchen. Something fell out, a small black cube, no bigger than a sugar packet. A camera. The light blinked once, then went dark. My phone buzzed immediately. You shouldn't have done that. I went to the police again, this time with the camera. They said it was likely a prank or a stalker case, told me they'd file a report. That night, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks. When I looked through the peephole, no one was there, just an envelope taped to the door. Inside was a flash drive labeled in Evan's handwriting. Us. I plugged it into my laptop with shaking hands. Video files, again. Each one showing different rooms. Our kitchen, the bedroom, the bathroom. But the timestamps, they were current, meaning someone was still watching. I scrolled to the last file. The thumbnail showed me, sitting exactly as I was then on the couch, laptop open. I double-clicked on the screen. My webcam light flickered on, both in the video and in real life. Then Evan's voice, right beside my ear. Don't turn around. I froze. Behind me, the TV reflected part of the room, a shape standing just out of view. Tall, still. In the reflection, his head tilted slightly, the way Evan used to when he teased me. Then the figure raised a phone. The screen glowed blue, my contact photo. A message came through immediately. Miss me? I screamed and ran for the door, but the lights went out. Only the TV stayed on, replaying the same moment over and over. Me sitting there unaware. In the background of the footage, something changed. Every few seconds, the shadow behind me stepped closer, frame by frame, until the last shot, where his reflection and mine finally overlapped.